Hi guys, today we're talking about logical reasoning, and there are notes attached that you should copy down into your math journal before watching this video. So if you didn't do that, go do it now. And I'm on page 40 in the textbook, and I'm just going to go through the examples at the top of the page so that you know how to do these problems. All right, it says, identify the hypothesis and conclusion of each statement. So in your notes, you would have seen that the hypothesis is the if part of the statement, and the conclusion is the then part. So the example in the book, and please follow along, is if it is January, then it might snow. So if they want you to write the hypothesis and conclusion, you're just going to take the if part and write it by the H for hypothesis, and take the then part and write it by the C for conclusions. So when I write the hypothesis and conclusion, I don't need to include the words if and then. I'm just writing the part after if and the part after then. Okay? So hypothesis, it is January. Conclusion, it might snow. Not in Florida, but maybe other places. Okay. Number 5. If you play tennis, then you run fast. So the if, again, goes next to the H for hypothesis, and the then part of the sentence goes next to C for conclusion. Okay, so hypothesis for number 5, you play tennis, you run fast. You run fast would be the conclusion. All right, so the next section on the page has different directions, so let's look at those. It says identify the hypothesis and conclusion of each statement. Then write the statement in if-then form. So we're doing 3 things for these problems. Pay attention to directions. They're very important, and if you don't do all the things it's asking you, then you're going to get things marked wrong. Okay, so identify hypothesis and conclusion, and then I have to write it as an if-then statement. So these are a little bit trickier because you have to figure out what the if is. What is the cause that's making something else happen? It's kind of like cause and effect. So number 7 says, Lance watches television when he does not have homework. So if I see the word when, that is my clue that they're giving me the if part of the sentence now. Okay? So when he does not have homework. So that's my hypothesis. He does not have homework. And I'm going to abbreviate homework for time's sake, okay? And then my conclusion would be the other part of the sentence. What happens if he does not have homework? He gets to watch TV, right? So Lance watches television. Television. Oh my goodness, I can't talk or write. Okay. Lance watches TV. Now I have to write the third step of my directions. Write it as an if-then statement. If, my hypothesis, he does not have homework, really struggling here. I'll get it. And we always separate our if part of our sentence and our then part with a comma. Then Lance watches TV. Okay, so we did our 3 things. We named our hypothesis, we named our conclusion, and we wrote the whole thing as an if-then statement. Next, number 8. A number that is divisible by 10 is also divisible by 5. So again, we're going to write hypothesis, conclusion, and then an if-then statement. So what is the first part? If a number is divisible by 10. So hypothesis, if a number is divisible by 10, then what? next part of my sentence. It is also divisible by 5. So that's my conclusion. Divisible by 5. Okay, so now I'm just going to write all of that in my if-then statement. First part is the hypothesis and the if. If a number is divisible by 10, comma, then it is also divisible by 5. And there we go. And it's a sentence, so I am going to start with capital and end with a period. Okay, this next section is giving me some rules to follow, and it wants me to write an if-then statement. So let me read the directions. Determine a valid conclusion that follows from the statement. If the last digit is a 2, then the number is divisible by 2. So that's the rule I have to follow. Okay, so it says, if a valid conclusion does not follow, write no valid conclusion and explain why. So number 10 says, the number is 10,452. So the rule in the directions was, if it ends with 2, it's divisible by 2. Does this end with 2? Yes, it does. So that's my if, the number, and then the then is it is divisible by 2. So if the number is 10,452, comma, then it is divisible by 2. And the directions were telling me those rules that I needed to follow for that, okay? All right, let's keep going to the next section. The last part is find a counter example. And from the notes, you remember that a counter example is a specific case in which a statement is false. So it might normally be true, but for this one specific case, it's going to be false. Remember the question that we had about if it is January, then it might snow? And I said, not in Florida. So that would be a counterexample to that statement. It might snow in other places, but it's not going to snow in South Florida, that's for sure. Okay? So let's look at number 13. If Anna is in school, then she has a science class. Well, we have to think of a kind of like a false statement or something that is an exception to that rule. Is Anna really going to always have a science class in school? Well, we could say no, because she may have a schedule without science one year. So that is our counter example. She may have a schedule without science. And that's all you have to do for that. All right, last one, number 14. If you can read 8 pages in 30 minutes, then you can read a book in a day. So what I did is I broke this problem down and I said, okay, in 30 minutes. Well, there's 2 sets of 30 minutes in every hour, and there's 24 hours in a day. So I did 24 times 2, and I got 48 hours. And then, or 48 half hours. And then I multiplied by 8, because they said you can read 8 pages in 30 minutes. 48 times 8 is 384. So here's the exception to this rule. Yes, you could read a book in 8 pages in a day if you can read 8 pages in 30 minutes, but not if the book has more than 384 pages. So a book can have more than 384 pages. And that would be an exception to that rule. All right, another exception could be you may not want to stay up all night reading. Then you couldn't read a whole book in one day. All right? Okay, please watch the video again if you need to, and let me know if you have any questions. See you next time.